From inspiration to manifestation. That's a phrase that sounds good, but let's see what it really means. And let's see where the resources to that lie. Because every single step of that process from inspiration to manifestation is driven by spirit from within you, impelling you to take action, impelling you to clear things out. So let's look at what that looks like. We are designed as the interface. We're designed as the interface between the infinite potential and the manifest reality. We're designed as that. We're born as that interface. And it takes a long time sometimes. Sometimes people get it quickly. It's taken me a few decades to kind of understand this, that we have every single thing we need within us, accessible to us, to achieve what we want to achieve on this planet. So let's look at inspiration. Now, I started thinking, what inspires me? I am a sap at a live performance when the actor or the singer gets into that groove and the chills go over my body and a tear runs down my eyes because they're in sync. You know, you can tell that when someone's there. And then I was thinking, when I teach a class or I coach someone or I get to witness that spark of recognition go on in someone's eyes, someone's heart, you can feel it because we're all this same presence, just uniquely individualized as each person. So you can feel that, you can sense that, and that so much just moves me, and I know it moves everyone. Now, but what was it when I was a kid? Now, some people know I'm an electrical engineer by degree, and so I like technical things and little things. So as a kid, I remember maybe first or second grade, my parents got me the Batmobile model set. You had to cut it apart, file it, sand it, put it all together, and it came with a Batman and Robin, and you had to paint all that. You know, of course, we are talking, like in the 60s, so it was Batmobile. And then the Apollo, we were trying to make it to the moon. So I got a model of the Apollo, and I built this model, and I painted it, and I just loved doing that. And then when I got older, my parents would get me science kits from Radio Shack. And I'd build radios, and I'd build things like that. Of course, that's why I became an electrical engineer, because I like to do stuff like that. One time, I remembered this as I was preparing the talk. I hadn't thought about it in a very long time. So I am not, well, let's not claim that. So far, to my recognition, I am not an artist. Connie is. Connie is, look at the vision board and look at her art. She's only been painting for 2 years. You would think she's been doing it her whole life. But I remember sometime junior high, we'd finished breakfast, and I was sitting at the breakfast table with my parents, and I got a piece of paper and a pencil, and we had one of those things you have on your kitchen wall, like a mold of something, a mold of a pot or something. And I sat there, and I sketched an exact replica of what it looked like. And when I finished, I went, whoa, where did that come from? Because I'd never done anything like it, and I've never done anything like it since. But it was in the moment, I was inspired, I did it, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. So that's in me somewhere, right? Just has to be tapped. What is it that inspires you now? What is it that gets you moving? Is it art? Is it poetry? Is it movement? Is it architecture? Is it some dream inside of you that wants to come forth? What is it that gets you inspired? And then, what inspired you 10 years ago? Is it the same stuff or something different? What inspired you when you were a kid? Is it the same now? I mean, I've thought about doing models again, but I haven't done them in decades. So what is it that inspires you now? And think about it. What inspired Gandhi? Somebody from a lower caste system in India stood up to authority, not with force, with complete nonviolence. We now have a season of nonviolence that happens in some of our centers that Michael Beckwith kind of began with Associated Global New Thought organization, but that's available. But what is it that was so resonant in Gandhi that the whole society responded? That's that presence. I recently watched the play LBJ All the Way at Zach Theater. It was very, very good. And it showed how he cajoled. He was kind, and if kindness didn't work, he was forceful to get the legislatures to do what he wanted them to do. It was a very good play. And it was a period after Kennedy's assassination, before LBJ's first election. And so it was a period of Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights and getting that through the legislature. What was it about, what was in Martin Luther King Jr.? What did he hear that inspired him to go through so much to achieve a lasting change in this society? If one man, Gandhi, one man, Martin Luther King Jr., or others that are like that, if one person, the suffragettes, I saw the commercial, evidently Meryl Streep is in a movie coming out soon. It's called The Suffragettes, when the women were getting their right to vote in the early 1900s. What inspired them to stand up and to say, this isn't right? What is in you that wants that? We're all here for a mission. We're all here for a purpose. What is that inside of you that seeks, that knows the truth so well that you can stand in it despite all the storms that happen around you? Because we know change causes storms sometimes. Change causes, people don't like change. We don't like change. We're in this class, prosperity from the inside out. And luckily, we're being driven from the inside with my morning meditations, and we're being driven from the outside with all of Patty's coaching and stuff that we're doing. So we're approaching prosperity from the inside out, from the inside out. And I know that everybody in that class, including me, has had a lot of stuff come up. Because when you want to change, well, you have to change because you aren't already the person that would have what you want. So if you want something different, we have to become people who are different. And that causes us to have to change. I was listening to a TED Talk last night, and I forget her name, but she said that within 5 seconds of an impulse to do something, of an inspiration, you must do something within 5 seconds, because our brains want to say, oh, good, oh, can't do that now. We're very, very quick at stopping ourselves. And she said, if you can't take action then, she was in the TED Talk, she said, when they had a reception afterwards, she said, if you have an impulse to go over and talk to someone, go and talk to them and do not think about it. You have the impulse, follow it. If you can't follow it within 5 seconds, make a note. Make a commitment, because change requires us to change our state. And we're created as creatures of habit. Since I teach things that are based on science, a neuroscientist I know, who is actually a columnist in the Science of Mind magazine, Mark Robert Waldman, so I got to talk to him a lot, and he said that neuroscience proves that we are designed as creatures of habit. When we hear a no, our whole system responds right then. But if we hear yes, it takes several yeses to make it through our system. We're used to being, no, I'm doing this. We're used to being in our habits, in our trenches of the way we are. And so we have to listen. The thing that frees us is that inspiration that wants to come forth, and it's saying, hey, here's a thread to get you out of your normality. Here's a thread to help you to change. You better follow that thread right then, because there's energy with that thread. Otherwise, we clamp it down and say, well, our ego always finds some reason. And as she said last night, as I was listening to that talk, she's like, you're never going to feel like the change you want to have. You have to overcome your feelings. You're never going to feel, like for me, I'm detoxing and dropping weight and going to the gym, and I never feel like going to the gym, right? We never feel like making that change. But it's that inspiration that we can follow, that energy, and that will help us get there. I looked up the definition of inspiration, and the official one is the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially to do something creative. That definition is written for someone who lives in their egoic awareness, someone who lives in the surface mind. I would define inspiration as a creative idea that comes from the one mind, because we're all one mind, because you are the one who can do it. That's why the inspiration comes to you. Plus, it comes with all the energy and the resources to implement it. So inspiration is not just a thought. Inspiration is a thought that leads you into a place where all the energy required to do it, all the resources required to do it, and it came to you because you're the one to do it. So why would we ever say no? I've said no many, many times to inspirations because my ego shut me down. But those egoic awareness thoughts, they happen. They're going to happen. We live in this physical world, and that's what those thoughts are associated with. If we want to live outside, above the fray of normality, we have to say, okay, the ego's really having its monkey chatter. Thank you, monkey. The ego is having its monkey chatter, but it has nothing to do with me. And I'm taking my attention off that, and I'm standing with the inspiration I have and the goals I've defined. That's our conscious choice every moment. In this class, Prosperity from the Inside Out, I had to talk with my practitioner within the last week. And it's good to work with a practitioner when you're dealing with things and wanting to make changes. So the local one I've known the longest, many of you know, is Glenda Moore. And so one morning in her meditation, she picked up on something was happening with me. And she wrote me and said, I know you're making a lot of changes. What's going on? And we hadn't talked in a week. And then I wrote her back this whole list. Oh, yeah, I'm just afraid of this, and this is happening, and I'm seeing this, and it's like, oh, it looks crazy. I just wrote her this list, and I said, I know it's my old stuff coming up and out, but it's right in front of my face. It was right there, and it was like I could either reclaim it, or I could pronounce that it is coming up and out of me. And about 2 days later, I felt so different because it had come up and out of me. We have to be aware of that process. That's just part of change. So what are you inspired to do with your life? Now, May and June, we have used this book, Creative Mind and Success by Ernest Holmes. I believe it's available as a download on the website, or it's available by email if you let us know you want it, because it's in the public domain. So we got it from scienceofmindarchives.org and are making it available. But I like my hard copy because then you can do yellow and all those things on it. I'm going to read this section, and then we're going to look at what Ernest Holmes says about what we're talking about, from inspiration to manifestation. So this section is called The Ideas of the Infinite. Suppose that we wish to draw from the universal mind some definite idea, some guidance, some information, some leading. How are we going to do this? First, we must become convinced that we can do it. Where do all the inventions come from? Where does Edison get his information about electricity? Now think about this. This was 1926 when it was published, so he put it that way, like present tense. Where, if not from the direct mind of the universe? Everything that has ever come into the race comes direct from mind, one mind, okay? It could come from nothing else. Every invention is but a discovery of something that already is, although we may not have seen it. Where does the harmony of music come from? Where could it originate except in mind? Does not a great musician listen and hear something that we do not hear? His ear is attuned to harmony, and he catches it straight from life itself and interprets it to the world. We are surrounded by the music of the spheres, but few of us ever catch the sounds. We are so filled with trouble that the divine melody is never heard. If we could see, if we could hear, if we could understand, if we only realized the presence of the all, what could we not do? When a great thought springs up in the mind of an individual, when a great poem is written, when a great work of art is wrought by some receptive artist, it is simply a sign that the veil is thin between there. He has caught a glimpse of reality. So what is this saying to us? Before I go into the details there, let's remember that we are designed as the literal interface between the infinite potential and the manifest reality. That means we have everything required to take an idea that we're driven to do, especially an inspired idea, and to work it through our thoughts, through our emotions in our body, which are energy in motion, E-motion. Energy in the body, it gets it in there. We start taking action. We are that place. We can get the ideas when we want them. So let's keep that in mind as we look at some of that reading. First, we must become convinced that we can do it. No one is created special on the planet. Everyone is created special on the planet. Bless you. And Edison was not special at what he did. He was just the man that was willing to do over 1,000 attempts to make a light bulb when everybody else gave up at 5 attempts. He heard that it could be done. He knew it could be done. He was willing to persevere, to be persistent. And then, do you know how he got a new idea when he wanted to figure out what gas and what steel filament? He had this method of getting an idea. I often wonder who taught him this, how he figured this out. But what he knew was the answers were within, besides his scientific understanding. And so when he had an idea, or he needed an idea, he had the question. He had a metal pan that would sit on the floor. He had a tall chair he would sit in, and he would hold 2 metal balls. And he'd keep the idea in his mind, and he would close his eyes. He would breathe. He would relax. He would get into a meditative state. And what happens when that does? Hands open, the balls hit the metal pan, and at that moment, he would get the idea. And he always knew he would. He had programmed himself to do that. We can program ourselves to do anything. But he had figured out and done that. And that's how he figured out, okay, let's try this new metal or this new gas in the next try at the light bulb. So if he did that, and Tesla did a lot about electricity also, so what is it that you are here to do? Because you have the same resources that lie inside of you. Everyone does. In this philosophy, we believe there is one mind and one heart. And that mind is the mind of God, and that heart is the heart of God. The mind gives us the ideas, the heart gives us the calling and the forward pull. The next part of what Ernest Holmes writes in this book, where do all the inventions come from? Just answered that. Everything that has ever come into the race comes direct from mind. Everything that has ever come in, every invention, every new idea, comes from the creative mind. I know from the science-based stuff that I teach, that the logical mind only knows what has already been done. The logical mind is a database, a storehouse, a library of everything you've ever learned, everything you've ever judged about your learning experiences in life. But the egoic mind, that logical mind, never gets a new idea. All new ideas come from the intuitive mind, and we access the intuitive mind when we meditate. It's a whole different brain mode. And so that's why we meditate. We align ourselves to that inspiration, and we ask, what do I do today? In fact, next week, week 5 of Prosperity from the Inside Out, Susan, Lynn, and I are leading the class, and we're going to be taking you through an exercise about that. Every invention is but a discovery of something that already is, although we may not have seen it. Now, what does that mean? It already is, but we may not have seen it. When you take the classes in Science of Mind, we call reality what's inside you. This is all demonstration, all manifestation in the physical world. Reality is inside of us. It's your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, those inspirations, all that's inside of you is your reality. So if you can imagine it inside, in fact, let me change that wording. When you can imagine it inside at multiple levels of depth, then you're going to know how to create it, how to bring it into your demonstration in life. And we work with this when we're doing goals. We work with it in the reverse. What is the goal you have? Everybody who's in the class has written several goals they desire, but everybody has goals. What's that goal? Go within. How does it feel? What does it look like? What does it smell like? How does it sound? What does it taste like? What is your life going to be like when you have it? Who are you going to be as a person when you have it? You have just begun the manifestation process. The clearer you can get there, it's like in the old days, sorry, I hate to say that, when you went to a movie theater, they had a reel of film, and it was on a reel, and they had a bright light, and that film went through, and the light shone through the film strip, and it projected onto the film screen for us to watch the movie. Nowadays it's all digital, but we are that film strip for our own lives. We create our own film strip. So we set up all the way we want it to look, and the light of God is always shining through us. So as we create that film strip, it will become demonstrated and manifest onto the planet. Does not a great musician listen and hear something that we do not hear? His ear is attuned to harmony, and he catches it straight from life itself and interprets it into the world. We are surrounded by the music of the spheres, but few of us ever catch the sound. How many of you ever heard, if you're a meditator, you may have heard this, how many of you ever heard a song and no music was playing physically? A lot of us, right? That's hearing with the inner ear. The ear behind the ear. The God ear behind the physical ear. We can hear with that inner ear. We can see with the inner eye that's behind the eye. We can taste with the inner taste behind the taste buds. We have all the God senses within us that are represented as 5 physical senses. So, what does your inspiration sound like? What's its music? What's its rhythm? We are so filled with trouble that the divine melody is never heard. This addresses inner work. This addresses doing our meditation. This addresses, let's become flexible within ourselves. What I mean is, if we want to become manifesting beings, which we are, but if we want to do that consciously, we want to become flexible in our thoughts, flexible in our beliefs, flexible in our expectations, flexible in our judgments, flexible in our behaviors, flexible in our self-identity of who we are, flexible emotionally. If we have old stuff in the past that we haven't forgiven, old stuff we're holding on to, that decreases our flexibility. If we have something in the past that we haven't addressed and cleared out, then we can't hear the music trying to speak to you, that's playing to you. We have to clear that out. And actually, I was talking to, as an example, I was talking to a good friend of mine last week, and let's just say that he had a couple of years ago, he got scammed into an investor, and it looked like a really good investment. But this guy ended up being a fraud and had defrauded people out of money across the country. And my friend was one of his helpers without knowing all this was going on. And the FBI got onto it. And so my friend got really intense with, okay, the trial's going to happen. I want to see this guy imprisoned and punished and all that kind of stuff. But I could tell it was holding him back. His energy was low. His eyes looked tired. Nothing was happening in his life new, because he was so focused on, this guy's got to pay for what he did. Okay, and I just thought, okay, this is his process. Sometimes you say these things and sometimes you don't. And so the guy was convicted after a 3-day trial, and he'll be in prison for many, many years, 2 weeks ago. And my friend was so happy. He had to send this to everybody. And then when I saw him last week, his eyes were lit up. He was doing things again. His income had increased. He was out doing what he liked to do, taking pictures of architectural textures and things. That was an example of when we're holding on to something from the past, it is holding us back from our present. I had a client I worked with years ago. We were working with something in her life, and suddenly she said a key that she wasn't wanting to address. She said something about a 20-year problem with the family. And I heard, oh, there it is right there. And I asked for permission. I said, well, let's go here. And so we did that, and I talked to her about forgiveness, and I recorded her a forgiveness cycle for her to listen to. And 3 days after listening to it, every day, I didn't know this about her body, but she said that she was driving to work, and she noticed that she turned her neck, which she had not been able to do for 15 years. She had to turn like this. And that morning on her way to work, she turned like that and she went, I haven't done that in 15 years. Chiropractors, doctors, all of them couldn't get it moving. Once she did the forgiveness, her neck was moving. So what's that ailment in the body that's connected to some lack of forgiveness in the past? Things we have to look at. If we want to do this way, inspiration to manifestation, when we do that, it is achieving your desires in life through grace, ease, and trust. Versus the normal way of doing life is push it, make it, willpower, force it, go get it. Right? That's the egoic way of doing things. That's the typical way we're trained to do it. But the way to bypass that, to rise above the fray of normality, is to learn that way of listening to the inspiration, finding the resources from within, and trusting those. And as that monkey chatter is happening in the egoic awareness, just say, I'm not interested. I'm focused over here. Very, very powerful stuff. If we could see, if we could hear, if we could understand, if we only realized the presence of the all, what could we not do? Does that thought inspire you? What could you not do? In other words, once you do imagine it, feel it, think it, see it, hear it, understand it, what can you do? As long as it's within your heart, as long as it's within your being, there is not a single mountain that is too high. And in fact, you won't have to climb the mountain. The mountain will be removed as an obstacle at some point. So it's very good to notice this. Now, the other thing is getting to manifestation. We have this idea, but where's the resources? Where's the people? There's a story, in fact, this lady spoke at what this used to be called New Vision Church of Religious Science more than 10 years ago. And she wrote a book, Mutant Messages from Down Under. And she would, yeah, remember? And her name, anyway, you have to look up the book. But she went on a walkabout with the shamans in Australia. And at one point they were looking for water, desperately looking for water. And they were out here doing everything out here looking for water. And she said that she just kind of gave up. And she sat down on a rock and she's like, we need water. And she got into that state and she put her hand down and there it was right behind the rock. It appeared to her. So in the now moment are all the answers, all the resources, all the energies needed. But we have to realize that if we're busy doing this in this egoic awareness, in this physical world, the logical mind, which is about the egoic awareness, only knows past and future. The logical mind is busy stirring up the past to create the future to be the same as the past. That's all it knows how to do. That's why we get stuck in patterns. It takes that intuitive inspiration and it takes that moving into the intuitive mind, which is simply breathing, closing your eyes, relaxing. The intuitive mind opens up and you are in the now. Because when we do treatment, it's in the now. When you do meditation, it's in the now. And in that now, to me, it's like going through the looking glass. Remember Alice in Wonderland? She saw this mirror or this glass, and she went through the glass, and suddenly there was a whole other world that looked a little different, to say the least, from the physical world. But in that looking glass, as we sit there and hear that inspiration, we say, okay, show me. Where's the resources? Where's this piece we need? The answers come to us there. That's where the answers are on how to manifest it. In fact, that's what I'm doing when I lead these 40 days of meditations in the morning. And for those that are new, the Abundance book by John Randolph Price has 10 statements of principle concerning abundance. And we repeat those 4 times as part of this class. So every morning at 8:30, and you can check out our website, the call-in info is there and all that. Every morning at 8:30, I'm leading a 15-minute guided meditation on the day's principle. And in that principle, we're looking at what does this actually mean? What does it look like in life? We're like taking it from just a sentence to what is the life inside of that paragraph? What's the life inside of that statement? And it gives us new things to consider. And what I notice is as I'm doing these, and I'm sitting there meditating with everyone, and on one of the statements it says, my consciousness of the Spirit within me, as my unlimited source, is the divine power. We work with the consciousness within us to recognize that. As we become more aware and more conscious about that divine activity within us is the abundance we seek, then we need to just become more aware of that divine activity within us. And our abundance will increase as our evolutionary understanding of that within us increases. That's how that works. So, it's a lot said, and I'd like, as we close here, I'd like for you to just consider, get in your mind, what is that inspiration you have? And take that deep breath in and just agree with yourself that you're going to follow that inspiration no matter what that monkey chatter wants to say otherwise. That's what's important. Let's take this into treatment. If you'll allow your eyes to close, our spiritual mind treatment is for the newcomers, is a 5-step form of proactive prayer. So just go with this energy and just allow this energy to lift you. As Anne plays her music and I speak some words, as you take a full cleansing deep breath in, and on the exhale you release, you relax, and you let go, and you just feel yourself settling into that presence. Settle into that presence. That is the essence of who you are. Let's hear a little bit more Celtic harp, if we can. And in that presence, there is that one source, that God, that divine essence that is the source, the creator, the sustenance, the nourishment, the guidance, and the substance of all that is in this life. That presence is magnificent as we see the magnificence of the lavish abundance in this world by looking through the man-made space missions and see the trillions and trillions of infinite numbers of stars and galaxies. We see a beautiful diversity of God's creations on this planet in the form of plants, animals, people, ideas. That diversity comes straight from God. And we see God as that sort of blanket of energy that covers all of humanity, known and unknown, seen and unseen. And this blanket is a love intelligence blanket connecting all. Because there is that one mind, that one heart.